Joining us to discuss is Mustafa Tamiz, former consultant for the Department of Homeland Security. Our panelists are joining us as well. Today we have Jessie Jane Duff, Gunnery Sergeant, U.S. Marine Corps retired, and former Republican Georgia Congressman Jack Kingston. Thank you all so much for coming on. This is a topic that has come up several times, specifically now with the Biden administration, of what do you call what's happening here as far as what's happening with the children on the borders. Mustafa, I'll go to you. Are there two different things? What was Jen Psaki's point as you understood it?
Well, it's fairly simple. In essence, that facility is being used as a transition to process people within 72 hours and then move them to HHS. The distinction between what the Trump administration did and what the Biden administration is doing is that these are teenagers that came on their own. In the Trump administration, across the border, children were taken from their mothers and told, we're going to bring them back to you, but never brought them back. There's still 500 plus kids that have never been united with their parents. And that's the key distinction. And I know people are going to try to spin it to show it's the same thing. Well, it really isn't, because those 500 kids still don't have their parents. And these were toddlers and babies.
So we talked to someone earlier on the show, and he essentially pointed out that, this isn't just under the Trump administration. This is actually how it's done with CBP, that this is the standard, the protocol. Are you saying that this was only done during the Trump administration?
Where kids were actually taken, toddlers, babies, were actually taken from their parents and then told their parents that we were going to bring this person back to you. We're going to bring your child back to you. And then that just never happened. And then the administration lost track of who those kids were, where they were, there was no plan to ever bring them back to their parents. And we still have over 500 kids that have not been reunited with their parents. And these are toddlers. These are not teenagers. These are toddlers. And that's the key distinction. What we're talking about right now is teenagers that are coming across the border without any parents that are in a temporary facility as they transition to an HHS facility. So, yes, we have to be very vigilant, whether it's this administration or the last one or the next one. As Ronald Reagan used to say, we are a shiny city on a hill. And so we have a much higher moral threshold than anyone else when we deal with children.
I've got other questions for you. I'll take it a step at a time. But Jessie Jane Duff, if I can get you just to respond to that, and also the difference in just understanding the nomenclature of it, because it's kids in cages, it's kids in containers. It shifts a lot in the media, is what I'm pointing out, and it's difficult to understand. Your thoughts?
Well, I have received a briefing from the Trump administration at the White House, and one of the statements that was made was how coyotes were using these children to essentially pay families in South America or Latin America to take their child, use it so that the parents could cross the borders as a family unit. And then those children would eventually be returned, and the process would be repeated again. So there is a trafficking problem here. There's a human trafficking problem here. When children are separated from the parents, one thing that I do recognize the Trump administration was doing DNA tests, because the mere fact that people were claiming that this was their child when the child could not claim if it was or was not their parent is also something that should concern all Americans. So let's agree upon something, that we need immigration reform, that the wall itself was to stop a lot of these teenagers and others that are coming over to enter the country illegally. And if the Biden administration is no longer preventing people from crossing the borders, we have an additional problem. It's not just children, it's mass human trafficking, which highly impacts women and children. We're talking a sex trade, we're talking human trafficking, and that is a bigger issue, and I think we should not get away from that.
Jack Kingston, your thoughts?
We're having a surge because the Biden administration has promised that you can become a citizen, and because you can get free health care and COVID benefits and all kinds of other things. We don't need chaos at the border. What we do need is orderly migration. People cannot qualify as a refugee just because of economics. A refugee, by definition, is a targeted individual because of politics or something else. As the guest has said, we are shining light on the hill. Well, no duh. So therefore, people are going to be coming into the United States. Let's do it in an orderly fashion. The Biden administration has already created chaos. The next step in their plan is going to be, we need money, we need forgiveness, we need to liberalize law and have more confusion. I think this is abysmal. And these are the facilities that the Biden-Obama people used before. It's not called cages anymore because it's Democrats doing it. But there's 700 kids as young as age 13 that are in these facilities right now, and they're going to be in there for 42 days, not just 72 hours. They're going to go to another facility separated from parents.
Mustafa, I notice you're shaking your head. Your thoughts, your rebuttal.
Well, because they came by themselves, we didn't separate them from their parents. So, look, I think that we have to be careful about this issue. There's a divide in this nation and how we feel about immigration and how we define ourselves. And so I would say for every administration, whether it's last one, this one, or the next one, is we have to give people human dignity, and especially when we're dealing with kids. And so I think that I would be just as put scrutiny on this administration, a Democratic administration, as I would on the last one, in terms of how we handle kids. Because the reality is, look, we're a country of 340 million people. We have almost a 20 trillion economy. We have the military that, in history of the world, is the most sophisticated and the strongest.
Mustafa,
few kids,
before I interrupt,
a dozen kids, shouldn't be a problem for us to handle.
I'm running out of time. I just want to ask you about this because Jack kind of pointed this out. But if you're essentially telling the world that we will not do any deportations, how is that not seen as an open invitation for you to come into our country? You're a former advisor for Homeland Security. Tell me how that makes sense.
Well, I think that there's nobody, opening up the borders. There's no people rushing in. Reality is what you're saying is that what he specifically says is we're going to build a process. We're not just going to randomly deport people. We're going to have a real process. We're going to make sure that there's enough judges to hear the cases. We're going to follow international law. And that's what he's talking about. And everybody knows that. If the
thousands are pouring in. You've seen the reports. Thousands are pouring in. That's not right.
In January, it was the highest level since 2019. This is a created chaos because the Biden administration is promising free stuff to anybody who comes over. And when you're as young as 13 years old, you shouldn't be away from your parents.
All right, we're at it.
Let me just remind everybody, the inauguration was January 20th. And Jack has basically said in 10 days, there's been some severe damage to this country. And that's just not the case.
It's because of the signal that was sent as a candidate when, remember, everybody knew, hey, open borders, good times are here again, chaos, this is the guy who's going to tear down the wall. I don't understand why Democrats are so opposed to orderly migration and don't understand the economic displacement of American workers that are caused by people coming in and working for low wages, often under the table. This is something that should
Let me grab Jessie Jane Duff really quick. I got to give her a shot here.
Yeah, I'm offended that you just sit there and say, oh, in 10 days, it's not destruction. I'm sorry. You're setting a precedence. You know this, and don't be naive to it. You're also trying to call it an immigration issue. No, it's an illegal immigration issue. Let's be clear about that. These people are coming in illegally. There is a legal process to citizenship and need to enforce it. And if you're going to suggest that we're just this richest country in America when we have one of the highest unemployment rates right now in the United States, and to suggest that we have this surplus of money is not true. We have trillions and trillions of dollars of debt, and our Congress is pushing money through every single day that we cannot even pay back. So let's stop this land of milk and honey mindset while Americans have lost their jobs, and we're going to spread all of this around to the rest of the world. We don't follow an international policy. We need to follow an American policy because it's our country that is under siege from illegal immigration. I'm not worried about what's happening in Italy. I'm worried about what's happening in the United States.
I'm out of time. Thank you so much for sharing all of it. Mustafa, I appreciate you taking the time to come on the program. Mustafa Tamiz, thank you. Panelists are going to be with us for the next hour, so stick around. Thank you.